2 Benjamins or less is just about all you need for a great everyday watch. Don't believe us? Well, give us a fraction of your time and we'll prove it to you. With a handful of absolutely stellar watches, you can currently procure between $100 to $200 without sacrificing an attractive design or great specifications in the process. Shopping around for your first timepiece? Great. Shopping for your 10th timepiece? Even better. Shopping for family or friends? Good for you. More power to you. Whatever the case, join us as we sort through some of the best watches currently offered under $200. And just a quick note before we get started, we've already covered our favorite watches under $100 and our favorites between $200 to $300. So if you're looking for alternate suggestions based on your specific budget, feel free to browse our other guides at your leisure. Alright, let's jump right in with our first selection from G-Shock. You may have asked yourself, with all the hype around G-Shock, why are prices still so low after decades of releases and such a cemented reputation as horological staples, both in pop culture and in the smaller watchmaking world? Well, you'd have to ask G-Shock, as we can only guess, but it certainly speaks to the culture G-Shock has fostered, proving that watches well under $200 can hold their own right alongside ones for $20,000, albeit for different reasons. There are hundreds of different G-Shock references and most carry affordable price tags, and we understand that no one would hold it against us if this entire guide comprised all G-Shock references. So just know that we're showing one from a huge lineup of great sub $200 G-Shocks. This is by no means G-Shock's only great watch under $200, and there are multitudes to explore. We digress. The GBD200 RD4, part of the GBD200 Move series, takes the original form of the DW5000C and elevates it with smart features and full smartphone connectivity. And hey, we get it, there are going to be a camp of folks who scoff at G-Shock's move towards smartwatch territory, and would much rather rock a less smart but equally capable 5600 instead, and we get that. So our recommendation would be to also look toward the 5600 series if you don't need any smart features. For those that want them, however, the GBD200 is a fantastic sub $200 watch for the active lifestyle. We're talking full training functionality with the display of your distance, speed, pace, and other calculated values based on the built-in accelerometer, auto and manual lap times, target alert settings for time and calories burned, training display customization with elapsed time, distance, pace, lap time, lap distance, lap pace, average pace, speed, average speed, and calories burned. These are all features that you can track from the watch itself, but in case you'd like to keep track elsewhere, the Bluetooth connectivity allows for pairing to Casio's Watches app, where you can log all your activities and even control the watch's features remotely. Plus, you have all of G-Shock's typical rugged build qualities, a full resin case that provides insane amounts of durability and protection against shocks, bumps, and drops, 200 meters of water resistance for diving, and a multi-year battery life courtesy of the Japanese quartz inside. On the wrist, the GBD200 is in line with that of the 5600 series, more or less, with a 48.4mm lug-to-lug, 45.9mm diameter, and a 15mm thickness. It also comes in a full range of colors, bold like ours here, or more conventional options like a full black. We're staying in Japan for the time being, where Citizen, another heavyweight in the affordable watch arena, offers up the Garrison, a line of field watch-inspired eco-drive-powered watches that offer typical solid Citizen build quality, with that reliable caliber that's tough to dislike and eliminates the need for typical quartz-powered battery swaps. This is one of Citizen's larger Garrison military field watches. At 42mm, it's in line with that of the Hamilton Khaki Field King Auto or the Weiss Watch Company's 42mm standard issue. Anyway, you get the picture. Long story short, in our experience, the presence on the wrist won't be unsightly for those with smaller wrist dimensions, as the compact lug-to-lug and overall thickness, or thinness, so to say, mitigate the wearing experience. Our wearer here has a wrist dimension just shy of 8 inches for reference, which goes for all the watches shown in this guide. The stainless steel case comes mostly brushed apart from the high polish on the onion-style push-pull crown, and it affords 100 meters of water resistance. A flat, shatter, and scratch-resistant mineral crystal provides a very classic field watch-inspired dial with bright white Arabic numerals, a 24-hour track, a clean frame date window at the 3, simple dial text on the sword-style handset inset with plenty of lume, which, if you're familiar with Citizen, has a real knack for staying bright for hours at a time. This Garrison, sometimes referred to as the Citizen Chandler, don't ask us why, comes in 2 colorways, an emerald green and blue, both of which provide a clean, untextured, rich background that allows the applied elements to pop and provide excellent readability, quickly, which at one point was arguably the defining factor of a standard issue field watch in wartime. Powered by any available light source, a Citizen's own eco-drive powering the Garrison, specifically the E111, whose use overlaps with some of Citizen's other models. The Pro Masters use the E168, another eco-drive caliber with minor differences, that still provides energy to power the watch in the same manner as the E111. The heritage-style genuine leather strap is well-made, well-finished, and on par with the price point, so no complaints or surprises here. It will break in nicely with time on the wrist and will probably develop a decent patina with regular use. Although Citizen is certainly a bit more well-known for their dive watches and pilot watches at this point in time, the Garrison, or Garrison Chandler, offers some pretty incredible value from a brand that has great reputation and a great heritage in the industry. Look here, or take a look at our next pick from much newer watchmaking company Bertucci if you're wanting a solid field watch between $100 and $200. Field watches have been, historically speaking, bastions of affordability. So if value is what you're after and $200 is all you have to spend, the Bertucci A-2T field watch offers a full titanium unibody case, 200 meters of water resistance, and rugged and highly traditional field watch styling. Field watches make great first watches. They have a charming mix of visual character that looks great on just about any wrist, often modest case sizes, again that accommodates most wrist sizes, and they often pack in some serious utility. Starting with the case, the A2T's unibody unit is a full titanium build. Michael Bertucci, the man behind the curtain, wasn't able to disclose the exact mix of alloy, but he did clue us in that it's somewhere in the ballpark of grade 2, giving it excellent corrosion resistance. Lug to lug measures 49.5 millimeters and it measures in at 11 millimeters thick. On the wrist it wears nicely, ours here with a dimension just shy of 8 inches for context. This is one of Bertucci's largest field watch sizes, the majority maintaining much smaller case sizes, more true to dimensions of yesteryear. More accurate dimensions, we should say, of classic field watch models of World War II, 36 millimeters or around that size. If you have a larger wrist, we'd suggest one of these 40 millimeter units, as they're just large enough to look proportioned on the wrist, but not so large as to look unnatural for the field watch form. Nonetheless, this case uses an all-matte blasted surface, rendering the whole case in a fine matte finish, including the 4 o'clock screw-down crown, positioned 30 degrees off from center, and the screw-down case back. Plus, you get virtually unbreakable integrated titanium lug bars that do an excellent job of keeping the heavy-duty nylon NATO in place when taking the watch on or off the wrist. The A2T is constructed in such a way as to provide 200 meters of water resistance, dollar for dollar, spec for spec. If you're examining function alone, that's 150 meters more of water resistance than the ever-popular mechanical Hamilton khaki field. Bertucci's A2T was actually the very first model sold in the US back in 2004. There have been about a half dozen or so iterations since the first, Bertucci only making minor improvements since, and this stands as the latest version that dates back to 2021. Protecting the dial and sealing off the case is an R-type hardened mineral crystal, underneath which lies a very traditional dial composition with bold Arabic numerals for all hours, framed by a simple minute track with dotted loom set indices just above each numeral, a white offset date window at the fore, a baton handset with a bright red seconds hand with a shield-shaped counterbalance, and an internal 24-hour track encapsulating the dial's only text of Bertucci below the 12 and the case specifications almost dead center. One of our only gripes is with the last two pieces of text. Centering the text in the negative dial background space above the 6 and stacking titanium over 200 meters, in our opinion, would make the dial read all that much clearer. Inside, a Japanese quartz caliber powers the A2T, which comes with a 3-year battery life rating. In terms of reliability, you can't argue with the choice of quartz here, especially for a utility-first field watch. For the price, the quality of the NATO here is one of the best we've ever seen. To get specific, it's a US patented B-type heavy-duty nylon NATO webbing strap that slides in and out of the lug bars like so. The thickness here is probably double what you get on most other field watches around this price point, so that's definitely worth considering if you're a fan of this style of strap. At this point, we assume you have some familiarity with Timex. The once American-made watchmaker dating back to 1854 has continued to manufacture budget-friendly watches decades later. So much so that they've created such a niche as to become one of the de facto watchmakers to consider when budget is a constraining factor. There are a litany of great Timex references you can find between $100 and $200. Some of our favorites are the new Q reissues, of which there are a few, the Waterbury GMT, the Expedition North Field watches, and obviously the Hoyer-inspired Marlin. However, we're going to look at a collaboration for this guide with the Timex Todd Snyder Mark I Sky King, only the latest in a slew of Todd Snyder and Timex collaborations that have produced some incredibly well-designed watches with distinct signatures from each heavyweight. Todd Snyder is an American menswear destination that 1. Has their own dedicated staples, and 2. Offers a curated selection of men's essentials from a catalog of partnership brands, of which they occasionally collaborate to produce one-of-a-kind pieces. They pick Timex seasoned professionals to help create their very first chronograph, and we absolutely love it. Currently, for just under $180, the vintage mid-century wartime styling, combined with the blacked-out case and dial, and bright white dial elements contrasted with a bright orange lollipop, seconds, is hard not to love for anyone who's into field-style chronographs, wartime chronographs, or we'd even go so far as to say World War II-era pilot watches as well, since we can clearly see some influence. Here's what we love. At 42mm, the case toes the line between a traditional, modestly sized field watch and a larger pilot watch chronograph, although it certainly leans towards the latter. The all-blacked-out stainless steel case with the 2 and 4 minimalist-style pushers that control the dial's 3 sub-registers is extremely stealthy and looks sharp on the wrist with the all-matte finish. Todd Snyder doesn't disclose the specific method for the case's coating, but we'd probably guess PVD based on the price point. So the movement tucked inside isn't mecha quartz, so the pushers don't feel mechanical in the least. They feel more button-like than anything else, with no tactical clunk or click when pressed. Under a very highly domed acrylic crystal, the 2 o'clock pusher controls the 60-second sub right above the 6, also above the Todd Snyder smiling text. That's a little hard to see if viewed at any off angle because of the curved acrylic, and the 4 o'clock expectedly resets. You can also reset the second sub by pulling out the push-pull crown, and the sub-register hand will pop back into place. At the 9 is your 30-minute counter, and a less handy 24-hour at the 12. Between each are circular markers and an outer minute track with numerals every 5 minutes. Timex and a simple white date window and a baton handset inset with thin strips of loom and a bright orange seconds with a lollipop counterbalance sum up the majority of the dial's notable elements. Mainly because of the pushers, this collaboration does only have 50 meters of water resistance, so keep that in mind, meaning keep this off for showers. The 20mm strap is mostly where we can feel Snyder's influence, as it comes in the form of a notably premium, for Timex that is, NATO that uses a genuine leather tan backing under the patchy olive textured textile upper. It gives the Mark I a ruggedly refined quality that does a nice job of balancing out the heavy, utilitarian feel of the watch itself, and almost gives you the sense that you could dress this up with a business casual fit, if your style leaned in the direction of Americana-influenced elevated workwear. Launched at the start of the new millennium, Casio's Edifice line aimed to blend dynamic, fresh designs backed up by only the latest in modern watchmaking tech. With that statement, you'd assume each Edifice carried a hefty MSRP. However, in characteristic Casio form, they managed to offer quite a few models in this line for insanely reasonable prices, and dollar for dollar, they're incredible watches. Today, we've included the Casio Edifice ECB 900 MP-1A, embodying palpable modern motorsports influences from the gauge-like dial subdivision all the way to the bright hypercar-like accent colors and the varying metallic finishes. More or less, you get everything with this Edifice, and at first glance, it does feel overwhelming. Digital readouts, mechanical-looking subdials, 4 case-side pushers, a tachymeter bezel, and only adding to that smorgasbord of horological goodness is incredible, handy solar power, and Bluetooth integration, allowing for full control of the watch's many functions from Casio's dedicated Watches app. Starting with dimensions. Unfortunately, this is going to be one of the only minor drawbacks for someone who aligns themselves with the watch's modern racing aesthetic: the size. At 48mm in diameter, 51.5mm lug-to-lug, and 13.9mm thick with a raw stainless main case, the ECB 900 MP-1A wears large, no matter how you cut it, and it's hard to hide the fact on the wrist. Our wearer has a wrist dimension just shy of 8 inches, and although there is an argument to be made that a wrist of this size could properly house a 48mm watch without coming across as comical, it may still receive a few chuckles. To Casio's credit, it would have been extremely difficult to fit all the dial's features into a smaller profile. The actual dial itself is only about 32mm, not accounting for the marked chapter ring around the periphery. But with the 2 pieces of main case machining sandwiched between the pushers, one of which being the crown guards, and a thick bezel, the watch's presence quickly grows to that of 48mm in dimension. Let's go ahead and disregard the size for a moment and take a closer look at the dial and in turn the specifications. It's fairly obvious Casio drew heavy inspiration from the track, motorsports in general, or you could even say more specifically Formula 1, that is, to design the look and feel of the dial's presentation. In order to cover everything without getting confused, we think it'll be most organized to work from the outside to the center. Engraved into the black ion-plated bezel sporting a fine vertical brushing is a tachymeter in white and red. Under the completely flat mineral glass is a tall sloping chapter ring that partially houses the Edifice's highly polished chromed hour markers, which all lead into the dial's main steering wheel inspired layout. In the lower right, at the fore, the largest element by far is an actual speed indicator subdial that will track your average speed, say if you're doing laps around a track. To the left is a PR indicator in the form of a fuel indicator, full to empty, and two digital gauge-like screens that provide additional features like world time, a stopwatch, a timer, alarms, and a full calendar. This Edifice, like many newer Casios, offers full Bluetooth connectivity to connect to the Casio watch's app. You can both keep track of the watch's functions and control the watch's many functions from your phone, if that's something of interest. Tough Solar keeps the ECB 900MP-1A powered up for 6 months at a time with normal use, or for a total of up to 19 months on a full charge if not used and stored in the dark. Casio's Tough Solar, for anyone unfamiliar, provides the same charging capabilities as that of Citizen's EcoDrive, and for anyone unfamiliar with the EcoDrive, you're provided with technology that can harness any available light source, not limited to solar, to top off the reserve. Heaps of lume within the handset and a bright white LED tucked away at the 6 keeps visibility high in the dark. Plus, this LED is activated in the right mode with a flick of the wrist for a hands-free view even at night. We spoke about the Timex reissue line when discussing Todd Snyder's most recent collaboration with Timex, so we thought it worth highlighting one of their most interesting reissues inside the growing Timex reissue catalog, which is really an overarching family of reissues packed with quartz movements, all with near carbon copy silhouettes of their decades past releases. The Timex Dégradé is one such reissue that revives a late 70s model with an extremely singular domed acrylic crystal sporting intricate interior facets that both refract the light and provide a unique visual experience of the Fume dial below. Well, technically the Dégradé dial below, which we'll explain. Dégradé in French simply means to degrade, so to speak, and this degradation is not so much a breakdown as it would mean literally in English, but more so a transition or transformation from a top color, in this case a violet or black, to a base color, in this case a metallic light olive green. This base tone has a unique knack for changing its shade depending on the light that refracts through the faceted acrylic, ranging from a rich, saturated olive to a lighter, almost faux patina-like yellow that nearly matches the off-white shade of lume inset within the baton handset and dotted at the base of each hour marker along the minute track. We think that folks are either going to love the viewing experience or conversely loathe it. We have mixed thoughts, but they're mostly positive. The presentation is singular, no denying, but the faceted crystal creates lines that intersect above the dial at odd points. Take, for example, the date window. If you look closely, there's a line that falls between the day and the date. Great attention to detail here that doesn't interrupt, interfere, or otherwise distort the reading of critical information. On the other hand, just below the 12, one line cuts right over the Q of Timex, and although this isn't pertinent information like the time or date, it's noticeable, and our eye just kept going there again and again. Perhaps shifting the Timex text toward the center would allow for some breathing room. Nonetheless, that's a minor note, and again, not at all extremely important to important parts of legibility. Backtracking now to the main case, the Dégradé's overall look and feel is a near carbon copy of the late 70s model it was molded after. No surprises here, as the other Timex reissues so far have also been faithfully recreated without major changes. These aspects include a tonneau-shaped 38mm stainless steel case with a sunburst brush finish, highly polished sides, a flat, highly polished bezel, and a discreet push-pull crown at the 3 that provides about 50 meters of water resistance. As per the dial and the Q designation in the name, Timex employs a simple quartz movement to power the watch, which will provide a good deal of maintenance-free daily wear for years before needing a battery swap. An easy process, by the way, of the case back, and a fresh 377 coin cell battery. For just over $180, the 5-row Jubilee uses 2 different finishes, a vertical brushing for the 2 outer links, and for the 3 central links, high polish that matches the flat step bezel and the sides of the case. Cotter pins in the 5-link style do make resizing the bracelets a bit tricky, but for someone with a bit of experience, it should take about 5 minutes or so to dial in a solid fit. Keep in mind that the clasp does not sport any micro adjustments, but there's ample play from link to link that almost gives the full stainless steel bracelet an artificial stretch factor that will provide a few millimeters of play when it's harnessed around the wrist. If you have about $200 to spend and are looking for an everyday vintage reissue with a very singular dial and an extremely reliable grab-and-go caliber that can easily get dressed up for an office environment, the Dégradé is seriously worth your consideration. Our next two picks take more traditional dress watch approaches. The Seiko Tank SWR-049, or the solar-powered version, the SUP A-2T, is essentially a budget Cartier tank around $150. Seiko's carved out a niche, much like Citizen, Casio, and Timex, for producing quartz-powered or even mechanical watches that are extremely well built, but easy on the wallet, and are staples in collections held by even the most elite collectors in the watch world. Long story short, you shouldn't think of the Seiko tank as a poor man's Cartier tank. Although the design is similar by way of the rectangular case shape, what it offers is completely different and doesn't aim to be the Cartier tank. Plus, Seiko's outstanding heritage since 1881 should give you confidence that the execution of this modern homage is solid. They know a thing or two about a thing or two. Now, before we get into the specs, there are a handful of different Seiko tank references, and it can get a bit confusing, so here's the spark notes. There are both men's and women's Seiko tanks, each of which have different reference numbers depending on the finish, gold, silver, etc. For men, there are two main watches that use a total of 4 references to consider. First, the SWR-049, ours here, with the black strap and the stainless steel case. Then there's the SWR-052, with a black strap and a gold finish case, and then the SWR-064, which is a brown strap and the gold tone finish. The last, the SUP A-2T, is essentially the SWR-052, but it's built with a solar-powered movement instead of a generic quartz caliber. The last, the SUP A-2T, is essentially the SWR-052 with the black strap and the gold finish, but it's built with a solar-powered movement instead of a generic quartz caliber. We chose the SWR-049 over the SUP A-2T because the dial on the SWR-049 does without the solar text on the A-2T's dial, that in our opinion is a bit unsightly for a dresser. So what we have here again is the Seiko Tank SWR-049, the non-solar quartz-powered version with the stainless steel finish and a black strap, 28.4mm in diameter on the wrist and just about 6mm thick with a 38.2mm lug-to-lug. On our wearer's wrist, just under 8 inches, the size actually does feel comfortable, but we can see it appearing significantly larger on a much smaller wrist by way of that lug-to-lug. The main case is highly polished and it uses the traditional push-pull cabochon beaded crown set on this reference in black. Under Hardlex, Seiko's own, the dial is quintessential. Roman numerals, a thin sword-shaped handset, Seiko text, and a central frame, and we're glad Seiko stopped there. The Seiko Caliber 4N30 is exclusive to this style of rectangular case and is used in a handful of other references, like the ones we mentioned earlier in this section. It offers 3 years of battery life powered by Renata R379 or 379 battery. Securing the tank to the wrist is a solid black leather strap that's extremely classy and is probably the perfect color combination for the stainless steel case. The gold case version uses the same unit, just in a rich brown colorway. Before we move on, if you're interested in checking out other tanks well below $200, check out Casio's version that you can often find for under $50. Our qualifier for this guide is quantitative, and that's what we challenged ourselves to abide by. However, numbers alone shouldn't, in our opinion, always dictate your purchasing decision. Luckily, Orient, based out of the Akita prefecture in Japan, offers insanely beautiful watches with remarkably affordable prices, and as a definite plus, Orient manufactures mechanical movements in-house. Honestly, for under $200, Orient checks so many boxes that it almost seems too good to be true, and perhaps this cognitive dissonance is what keeps folks from the brand. We're here to champion their watches since we're big fans, and today we're focusing on the Bambino 3, a watch within a larger line of multi-generational releases with dressy characteristics, simple, well-executed dials, and in the case of this watch, an in-house automatic movement. 40.5mm in diameter, 46.8mm lug-to-lug, staying nice and compact with proportionally short lugs compared to the overall size of the main case, and an 11.8mm thickness, almost half of which is by way of a highly domed mineral crystal. Even more so than the Dégradé, the Bambino is a dress-oriented watch, but it somehow retains enough versatility to pull double duty with the right casual fit. Simple white or black tee, some chinos, pair of Chelseas, you get the idea. The handsome gray dial here makes doing so quite easy. We've driven this home time and time again, but simplicity, or taking it even further with minimalism, is so hard to execute well. The more you strip elements away that you could have used to potentially hide mistakes, the more you have to make sure what's left over is well executed. We're talking alignment, finishes, etc. Details matter, and Orient absolutely crushes it. Under the dome mineral, the cardinal markers are straight, the sunburst texture is absolutely beautiful, the dial text above the 6 and under the 12 is printed flawlessly for its small size, and the squared off handset matching the other polished elements of the dial in the main case is simple yet totally effective. We love the analogous color scheme here of the gray dial with the metallic dial elements and the white text, but there are many Bambinos around $200 that incorporate ample amount of color with equally impressive finishes. Green, blue, white, the list goes on, and there's undoubtedly something for everyone in this line. As if the aesthetics and technical construction of the housing and dial weren't impressive enough, Orient builds in the in-house automatic caliber F6724. We're talking hand winding, day only at the 3, hacking seconds, a 40-hour power reserve, and solid accuracy by way of a 21,600 BPH, giving the seconds end a notably smooth sweep for the price. The icing on the cake comes by way of a premium genuine leather strap with a smooth black finish and a raw backing made again by Orient themselves. If you couldn't tell already, we give the Bambino 2 enthusiastic thumbs up. If the Dégradé isn't traditional enough and you've been searching for a modern dress watch under $200, swing by Orient's site and sort through the rest of the Bambino offerings. We'd wager you're almost certainly going to find something you align with. In 2016, Ryan Torres and Reagan Cook out of Venice, California centered their watchmaking venture around a central question, or in a way you could argue a central challenge. In an era of uber-cheap fast fashion, or conversely full-blown luxury status, was there still a place for a simple, well-executed analog watch? Hindsight's 2020, but as it turns out, there was. In less than 10 years, Vaer has built a solid catalog of highly affordable mechanical watches designed in Los Angeles, incorporating American materials and a mix of global and domestic assembly. Today, we're looking at the Vaer S5 Tradition, a rugged field-inspired 40mm unit we think embodies everything great about the brand, and all for a price point well under $200. Vaer's core tenets, a blueprint for all their watches really, are as follows. First, water resistance for daily ocean use. Second, quick interchangeable straps for ultimate functionality. Third, extensive US material sourcing for added quality control. 4, refined aesthetics for unquestioned good taste. And 5, a responsible business for long-term growth. That all being said, how does the S5 Tradition hold up? Well, we took a look and here are our honest thoughts. Starting with the case, 40mm of 316L stainless steel, 48mm lug to lug, and 9.4mm thick. Overall, pretty fantastic proportions. There's also the exact same model, the smaller S3 at 36mm before anyone gets too fussy. Full brushing across the entire case except for the thinnest strip at the base of the fixed bezel and a large screw down crown at the 3 machines in plenty of grip and 100 meters of water resistance, which is fine for light swimming and light dives but not advisable as a dedicated scuba diving companion. Now another tenet is extensive USA sourcing. And while we applaud the effort, it's a bit of a stretch for the S5, which uses an automatic Japanese Miyota 2035 movement with 40 hours of power reserve and full assembly in Hong Kong. Some of Vaer's watches are assembled in the US, like the A5 Tactical Field, but overall, Vaer uses a hefty amount of overseas manufacturing and labor to keep the price point, well, extremely reasonable. For anyone with some background about what it takes to actually build a watch from the ground up in the United States, this should really come as absolutely no surprise. Plenty of micro-brands and startups use Japanese movements and foreign labor for assembly, guided by stateside designs. So if you're only shelling out $200 for a watch, manage your expectations. The S5 Tradition uses a flat sapphire under which is a dial that certainly takes some hefty inspiration from heritage field watches like that of the latest Tudor Ranger. That means an overall stripped-down dial approach. Numerals for only the cardinal hours, in this case the 3, 6, and 9, with a pseudo-high noon inverted triangle at the 12, missing only the double dots, and a repeating cadence of smaller identical triangles at the rest, leading the eye toward the syringe handset. The applied elements come by way of a whopping 25 layers of old radium superluminova, providing pretty substantial, outstanding nighttime visibility, at least according to our test after ample exposure to the sun. So refined aesthetics? Well, yeah, we'd say mission accomplished. Now that largely leaves the interchangeable straps and a responsible business model. Our S5 did in fact come with 2 straps, which for a watch just north of $155 is noteworthy, and we appreciate that they're not at all skimpy. The black rubber unit is super comfortable and the stiff tan textile strap will require a break-in period, but this only speaks to the thickness, which in turn speaks to durability. Check and check. Plus, each band and strap comes with quick-release lug bars, making these swaps about as quick and easy as it comes. With that comes the end of this guide, and like we said, $200 is really all you need for an absolutely capable everyday watch, no matter your style leanings. As always, check out our editorial companion guide and also let us know below if you didn't see your favorite watch listed here. There are many, many more great watches under $200 from many of the same brands, so we'd love to hear from you.